Hello and welcome to The Diplomat. I'm your host, Kang Sanu. Following last week, we continue our Jeju Forum-Special Edition from the beautiful Jeju Island. Today we are going to meet Nobel Peace Prize winner, the former President of East Timor, Jose Ramos-Horta, to talk about the path to lasting peace in the region.
Amid the mood of peace and cooperation between the two Koreas, the annual Jeju Forum took place on the scenic island of Jeju to discuss peace and prosperity under the theme of re-engineering peace for Asia.
Thank you.
On the last day of the three-day forum, the former President of Timor-Leste, Jose Ramos-Horta, talked about how to overcome legacies of the past and promote reconciliation and peace on the Korean peninsula and in Northeast Asia, based on his experience of fighting for the independence of Timor-Leste.
The fate of this peninsula rests on the two leaders, how to really engage each other, how to build trust and move forward. I'm very impressed with the ability of President Moon in bringing all parties to it. This dynamic peace process and the hopes generated would not have happened without the vision, the courage of President Moon.
After the dialogue, a Q&A session followed, with North Korea's human rights being the main topic.
What's the new approaches or what's the bridges to bring the human rights issue as important as a nuclearization?
If and when trust is restored between the two sides and achieve an irreversible denuclearization of the Korean peninsula, then maybe it will be time to move to a situation of human rights in North Korea.
We are young, so it's really good opportunity to just come and listen from them. And you know, the situation right now, like, it's really not that optimistic in the world, especially with the refugees issue. So I think they give you also a good, positive energy, through this forum.
Systems.
We caught up with the former president to learn more about his vision and efforts for peace in Asia. And that heartfelt conversation begins now.
Mr. Ramos-Horta, it's a great honor to meet you in person, and thank you for joining us today.
Pleasure.
So you just finished your special dialogue session, and how was it?
This time it's very meaningful because it's happening in the context of the heightening hopes about the normalization of relations between South and North, denuclearization, and hopefully lasting peace for the region and for Asia as a whole, for the world. So the forum this time has a greater meaning with greater hopes. And I believe that these hopes are not far-fetched and not unrealistic. They are attainable. The hopes of peace in the Korean Peninsula, denuclearization, normal ongoing relations between the two sides, and hopefully leading to reunification in the future.
Right. The theme for this year's forum is re-engineering peace for Asia. And as a person who dedicated his whole life to peace of East Timor and Asia, what do you think the theme signifies?
Asia is an extremely dynamic region. Half of the world population is here in Asia region.
Right.
Some of the greatest minds are from Asia. But at the same time, some of the greatest security challenges are in Asia.
Right.
One is the Korean Peninsula, the other is India-Pakistan tensions, China-India tensions, rivalry. So if a conflict or situation like on the Korean Peninsula that was, we thought 6 months ago, 1 year ago, was intractable, now suddenly there is hope. It means there is hope also for the rest of Asia. If North and South Korea can resolve this tension of 50 years since World War II, basically.
Right. So speaking of peace, I briefly mentioned in the opening, but you won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1996 for the efforts to bring peace and independence to your country. What is the concept of peace, in your opinion?
Timor-Leste was colonized by an European power for many hundreds of years. Then during World War II, Japan invaded. Many tens of thousands of people were killed by Japanese forces. Many women raped. Then came Indonesian invasion, and the Timorese fought for 24 years, and 200,000 died. My assignment was to work diplomatically at the United Nations, in Washington. I did a lot of work in the US Congress, because from the very beginning I knew a solution to the Timor problem goes through the US. And when you have an administration that is blocked for their own reasons, you try to work with the US Congress. So I lobbied the US Congress for many, many years and created a lot of friends in the US Congress, still today. And Indonesia was very big, 200 million people, and with support from many other countries. And we are very small, no major allies. And we succeeded not through military means. We succeeded through diplomacy, through dialogue, negotiations. Peace is freedom. Peace is freedom for our children, for women, for students, for youth, for everyone to be able to walk freely in the streets, to be able to speak their mind, to go to school. So this is a concrete concept. It's not an academic abstract.
Speaking of the Korean Peninsula, After a year dominated by fiery rhetoric and escalating tension in Pyongyang's nuclear weapons issue, I believe now we have some hope for permanent peace with the Moon-Kim summit and Kim-Trump summit as well. What are your views on these changes?
A few months ago, one friend in Los Angeles was panicking, was telling me, Jose, you must get other Nobel Peace Laureates to do something. War is going to happen.
Right.
And I emailed as I listen, calm down. It's not going to be a war. It's not going to happen. The North Korean leader is not suicidal. B, President Trump is bluffing. What I didn't expect is that President Trump would accept immediately to have a conversation face-to-face with President Kim Jong-un. Because in the past, for many, many decades, that was always what North Korea wanted. A face-to-face, direct dialogue with the United States. Recognition, and then gain assurance from the U.S. that the U.S. would not invade North Korea.
Right.
So that was always President Trump decided to accept. But for this to happen, it was President Moon who created the conditions. While the two leaders were insulting each other, there was someone who was sane, who had a very cool mind.
Yeah.
And he was negotiating behind the scenes, and that was President Moon. President Moon is mediating, building many bridges. He's building bridge with the North. He's building bridge between the North and the U.S. He has to keep the bridge between South Korea and China. So all of this has to be delicately managed, and South Korea, President Moon is doing that extremely well. So my assessment is highly positive. So I say congratulations to South Korea's diplomacy.
What do you think Korean government and public needs to do achieve permanent peace on the peninsula?
Stay united, support the government pro-peace initiative. There are no other options. What are the options? The only option that is sane, that comes from our brains, our mind, our heart, is dialogue to resolve this. There are no other option. And North Korea also realized that for North Korea to prosper, for the regime to deliver prosperity to the people of North Korea, who have suffered decades already, to deliver more to the people, there has to be a real permanent peace in the Korean Peninsula, some political opening up of North, like China. Why North Korea has to be different? It can be as successful economically as China, without impacting on the nature of the regime. So here, it's very important that North and South stay focused, trust each other.
Right. Now I would like to shift our topic to human rights issues. You are a committed advocate for not only peace but also human rights, and you publicly called on more attention for human rights in Asia. Can you elaborate further on this idea, please?
We cannot talk about peace, and peace cannot be achieved when at the same time human rights are violated. There is no freedom, no democracy when human rights are violated. I'm a good friend of a High Court judge of Australia, Michael Kirby. He was appointed by the United Nations to do a report on human rights in North Korea. And everyone are unanimous in their conclusion that human rights in North Korea is the worst in the world. Hopefully, with the peace process that has started, it will lead also to improvement in the human rights situation in North Korea. I believe that President Kim Jong-un will be able to do that because he's powerful, he can make decisions on his own. And no one is talking about regime change. We can say about social, political transformations in North Korea that mean end of torture, end of arbitrary executions, closing of labor camps. But the regime stays, but it's a regime that is more humane, more sophisticated, and more engaging with the international community. And that I think is possible.
So Jeju Island has been dubbed as the island of world peace, but it was the site of brutal human rights violation and massacres in the past. I heard you personally visited the Memorial Park, so we followed you the site. So let's take a glimpse of that touching moment.
On June 28th, the last day of the three-day Jeju Forum, hundreds of tourists visited the April 3rd Peace Park to remember the innocent victims of a terrible incident in Korean history. April 3rd, 1948 was a key date in a 7-year-long government-civilian clash stemming from ideological division, during which 30,000 people, or 10% of the island's population, were brutally killed. However, in the several decades after 1954, the country's authoritarian governments either distorted or covered up the truth in the name of public order and peace. That tragic incident turned the island into a gigantic prison and massacre site. So what does this park evoke in the minds of the visitors?
보면서 이분들이 있기에 우리가 지금 여기서 이렇게 제주도를 볼 수 있고 소중한 약간 우리 지금 매 순간을 소중히 해야 된다는 그런 걸 느끼게 된 것 같아요.
That day, former President Ramos-Horta also visited the Memorial Park. Participating in the 50th anniversary conference of the April 3rd incident in 1988 and the 2017 Jeju April 3rd Peace Forum, former President Ramos-Horta has shown great interest in the incident. The former president is a committed, fiery advocate of human rights. What kind of impression did this park leave on him?
Here in Jeju, I can understand the depth of the sentiments, of the feelings of Koreans over what happened here. So many innocent people, very young children, women, poor people, mostly peasants, who were murdered, accused of being communist conspirators. They were mostly innocent peasants who were seeking justice. So it's important to have a peace park like this, first to honor the victims, but also to teach current generation of Koreans, and not only Koreans, but people from all over the world who visit here, about the ugliness of wars, the ugliness of violence, about injustices, so that this kind of situations never happen again in Korea or anywhere in the world.
Continuous efforts to verify the truth and restore the honor of the victims. That is the ultimate path to peace.
I briefly heard that East Timor has a very similar experience like Jeju's April 3rd incident, and that's why you have a very keen interest in the Jeju April 3rd incident. Can you tell us more about that?
We had the same experience under Japanese occupation of women rape by Japanese forces, as we did also under Indonesia. There have been sites of major massacres in Timor-Leste, not only one place. There are many places in Timor-Leste where hundreds of people were killed in one single location. We have built memorials for our heroes, our martyrs, but we haven't done something similar to the Jeju Memorial Park. And I think it will be a great example, a great model for us to remember the victims, but also to educate current generation and future generations about the history of the country.
Right. Speaking of victims, the victims and families suffer from their wounds and pains for their whole life. What do you think needs to be done to help them to heal the pain and wounds?
One way to address the legacies of the past is precisely through tributes like the Jeju Peace Park. That's one way, part of the healing process. When survivors of atrocities of the past, people who survived the massacre, or people who are relatives, who grandparents or parents were the victims, at least when they visit a place like the Jeju Peace Park, for them is already part of the recognition of their suffering, part of justice, of truth that they were expecting. In order to a society, in this case, what happened in Jeju, very controversial at times in Korean history. Some part of Korean society doesn't accept. Many blame that they are communists. I know President Kim Dae-jun was the one that first started to say they were not communist conspirators. But even if they were, even if the victims in Jeju were, some of them are communists, well, they're still human beings. They're still Koreans.
Right.
Or if they were extreme right, they are not communists. They are extreme right. They were killed. They are human beings also.
Right.
So we shouldn't allow ideologies of the past to impede a process of human healing. It is time to put all of this aside and think of the people only as human beings.
Right. Now switch the topic a little bit and let's talk about your special personal ties with South Korea. I know that Korea holds a special place in your heart. Just from the number of your visits to South Korea speaks for itself. How did all this begin and what does Korea mean to you?
Well, as a human being, I'm curious about countries. I have been to more than 130 countries.
Wow.
Korea, I visit many times and read about the history. I watch Korean movies. You have some great filmmakers and great directors, great actors.
Yes, we do.
And Korean soap operas, very popular in Indonesia, in Timor, in many places.
Right.
So that's one. And we have Timorese workers coming to work here in Korea. And when I was the one who started this when I was foreign minister. So Koreans teach us a lot about work ethics because it's not only for the individual, for yourself, but for the country. Korea today is one of the world's biggest economies. When we work hard, when we study hard, we are doing for the country.
Mr. Ramos-Horta, it's been a real pleasure to have you on our show, and thank you so much for sharing your insights and wisdom with all of us. I wish the best luck of you.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you very much. Why is it so important to hosting diplomatic forum?
If we think of a If our intention is to educate people about peace, you have to think long term, 5, 10, 20 years of commitment, of mobilizing resources to educate young Koreans and the people in the region and from around the world on the values of peace, of human rights, of democracy, of humanity, solidarity.